Good morning. I would like to call the Wednesday, December 15th DAC meeting to order. We will begin with roll call. Haley Dellery, present. Stephen Kroll.
Present.
Danny McElmurray.
Present.
Miguel Viteri.
He's on his way. I think a few people have logged into the Teams meeting because that was on the invite. And it looks like Seneca Toussaint is also in that meeting too. So somebody needs to go in.
Okay, I responded to the chat. Let's see.
Right, but the meeting keeps getting started over because people keep leaving. So she just started the meeting.
Okay, I just responded to the chat so that Seneca and Robert Vallejo can see that we're meeting via Zoom. Oh, hi, Robert. Okay, so we're waiting for Miguel to be present. Eleanor Burke.
Present.
Lewis Haight.
Present.
Lewis.
Present.
Okay, thanks, Robert. Lewis Haywood.
Present.
Lindsay Glad. Okay, so at this time, we have everyone except for Miguel, who's joining us, and Lindsay appears to be absent. Public comment. The public comment form link will be available at NOLA.gov/CPC, and it will be available until the end of the 5-minute recess, after which time public comment will be read into the record as part of the consideration of dockets. One item on today's agenda has been withdrawn. Item number 2 for design review docket 11421 for a property at 4215 South Claiborne Avenue has been withdrawn. At this time, would the committee make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from the October 20th and November 17th DAC meeting?
I'll make a motion.
City Planning will second Eleanor's motion.
Okay, we have a motion by HDLC and a second by City Planning. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? And the motion passes. We will begin with the presentation of dockets. As a reminder, following staff presentation, the applicant will have 10 minutes to present. Item number 3 is the consideration of design review docket 12721 for a property along North Claiborne Avenue. We have Austin Allen signed up to speak on behalf of this application, and Robin is, well, actually Joseph Colon is the CPC staff member assigned to this case. Joseph, do you want to give a recap?
Yeah, it'd be my pleasure. Good morning, everyone, and happy holidays. So this is the this current iteration of the Claiborne Innovation District. Top line items. Please note that the application is underneath the Claiborne Expressway. So there are, I believe, technically lots there, which means that the sites, and it is multiple sites, I believe, 4 or 5 city blocks in the Tremaine neighborhood. They do straddle the HUB1 business district and the HMC2, what is it, historic core commercial district. And so there are different regulations that apply to that. And so in addition to DOTD and these regulations, the applicant has a lot to coordinate with. And as staff planner, I'll of course be happy to help with that. So it doesn't look, so I'll let the applicant speak about the overall nature of the built structures on the site. It does appear that most of them are accessory structures, and Also another top line item, it is classified under the terms of the CZO as a public market. And so most of the use standards in Article 20 that relate to that 20.3.tt, it do relate to the operation, sale, and kind of our operations. The only real design aspect is the landscaping and fencing requirements are different from a historic core to a historic urban commercial districts. And so we can talk about that, but in terms of setbacks and building design standards and bulk and yard standards, most of those are either non-applicable or can be enveloped under the accessory structure apparatus, applicable regulations of the CZO. Let me just make sure. And so those are going to really be in Article 21. So the presentation in front of you is very much oriented for presentational bodies like ourselves, the DAC, and so will need to submit landscape plans, further structural details, pedestrian and kind of circulation diagrams. But those are the things that kind of ring out at me upon initial review of this awesome project. So that's I will turn it
Okay.
over to the applicants now.
Thank you, Joseph. I'll just point out a few things that Phase 1A had previously been considered by the DAC in 2018, and that included review of the landscaping plans. So some of these items that were already reviewed and permitted show up on the plans, and specifically what we're looking at today are 4 items. 1, a canopy, 2, the murals, and 3, in the 400 block, they're proposing parking and storage for their temporary market structures, as well as stormwater management. And the 4th item is that while the public market structures are already existing on the site, they're proposing site improvements around it. So those are the 4 items that we're looking at today. And now, Austin, I believe I saw that you're present. You now have 10 minutes to present.
Also, if it's with your permission, I wanted to have Nairi Ramsey as well, if that's okay.
Yes, of
she's
course,
here.
that's fine. Yes.
Okay, great. And I think, well, first of all, I'm glad to be here today. And I think that Nairi is going to start the conversation.
Sure.
Go on.
Good morning. Well, it's good to be with you all, and I hope I sound okay. I am a little under the weather. I am COVID-free. It's a sneeze and a cough. But again, it's good to be here to reacclimate everyone to the project. We were present back in 2018 when we first presented this project, and was very excited to have the support of the council and the mayor then. And so we're excited to be presenting this next phase to this group body of membership, and of course now under the mayoral administration of Cantrell. Again, to acclimate you, the project is a 19-block project that was funded by the Economic Development Administration to your Capital Projects Administration. And so we're excited to be the private partner representing the community interests for this marketplace. You can go to the next slide, Austin.
There.
Again, with all of the talk from Buttigieg and of course our president, the I-10 is really on display, and as it should be, right? This is a matter of equitable development. And so we're excited that the city is moving forward with this equitable development plan. On the screen, you can see just how long the I-10 stretches, but we're only, again, talking about a very small piece of the longer I-10 expressway. And this area is the overpass. And so what's going to happen is the economic development engine of a marketplace beneath the I-10 expressway between Orleans and St. Louis. The overall project will extend between Cleveland and St. Bernard. But today we're only going to focus on the 4 blocks called Back of Town Plaza. Next slide. Just to give you context, as we were going around and doing the charrettes to get this project done, to come up with the master plan, we recognized the need to speak to community interests. And so the project was split up into 4 zones. And what you see at the far right of that corner is how it has expanded. We knew that there was an opportunity to really take advantage of some stormwater management initiative that the city is already working on. And so we just wanted to kind of let you see the full map of the area. We will not be talking about that area, but in addition to the 4 zones, there was an additional 5th zone where we wanted to take advantage of where the oak trees still stand in New Orleans along St. Bernard area, from St. Bernard to Elysian Fields. So that'll be later forthcoming, but we like visioning with this group, wonderful team. Next slide. So what came out of those charrettes are how can we make these improvements and these enhancements? And so what's at the top of that screen are what these enhancements are going to detail. And yes, you're right. That does mean a coordination of the city. That does mean a coordination of the state and even the federal government as we look to see some additional infrastructure support. Cleaning and maintenance, infrastructure, of course, lightening it back up, pedestrian protections, the furniture, which you'll see through this presentation, and of course, art and color, that was approved at the last presentation, and we'll go over those improvements and enhancements again. To orient you to the 4 areas, again, on the bottom of that screen is the Garden of the Moors, where we really do pay homage to some of the African influences in New Orleans. Back of Town Plaza, taking advantage of the relationship to reconnect communities between the Lafitte Greenway and Lehman Park. We'll talk specifically about how we'll do that in this presentation on today. Then Tamarine and Fan, which is the area between Orleans and Esplanade, is really to celebrate the wonderful culture of New Orleans and of course our civil rights icon, Jerome Smith, who founded that organization, that youth group. And so the area there, the market, will focus on youth initiatives. And last but not least, Spirit Circle, which extends between Esplanade to St. Bernard. And what you can see in that section a little bit, there used to be a roundabout at that area. And so we have been in talks with the Regional Planning Commission, in addition to DOTD, in terms of how we can get that roundabout back. That, of course, is another way that we, in which think about how we can slow traffic and protect pedestrians. Next slide. And I'll let Austin now take it over as we get into the meat of the project. Thank you.
Thank you. And so what you see here are the 4 blocks. And in those 4 blocks, the phase 1C, we're calling it, is how we will handle the 400 block. And what we're really focusing on today more so is the 500, 600, and 700 block, except for 0.4 as mentioned by Haley. But for now, those are the blocks. And what's important in the photographs up above is you can see we've begun some of the mural work, but in that you can see that those marks coming down on the bridge, those are caused by water dripping from above. There were some corrections done. If you look all the way to the right, the Department of Transportation and Development actually put in a gutter system to start to block that kind of marking from happening in that process. Next slide, please.
And Austin, just to
Yes.
give you a recap, you have 4 more minutes.
Oh, okay, let me speed up though. These are the things that we went through
Sorry.
in terms of 2018. And let me go to the next slide, which I think is a significant one that we talked about in terms of, yes. So we fully respect the zoning code as it exists today. And you see that it is right through the middle of the neutral ground is where the divide happens in the zones. And so that we have structures below that line and or even temporary structures below that line and over at the Greenway open space. Next slide, please. This was from the March 7th meeting. I just wanted to make it clear that we had approval for canopies, string lighting, and landscaping from the March 7th, 2018 meeting. And then there was a request that we do get approvals on all those items, and those things were approved, at least, those initial elements of it through the 1A. Next slide. This gives you a master plan, and you can begin to see how we're dealing with everything from stormwater in the green areas to parking in the 400 block, and some of the other things that we have got planned in terms of 500, 600, 700. Next slide, please. In the 400 block, as you can see, the storage, those four kind of lime green rectangles are containers that will be in the 400 block to actually store kiosk and other elements of the market, the public market that will be there. In those blank spaces in the parking, there's room for at least an additional 12 more parking spaces if needed. Next slide. In the 500 block, you can see its canopy. It starts here. The mural project, which has already started. Kiosks are used here. This is the active marketplace beginnings and a playground. The blue strip going through is a linkage between Lehman playground and the Lafitte Greenway that actually cuts through the block. And you'll see that if you're there on location, that it stops right there at the neutral ground both ways. And this is a continuation. Next slide, please. And this, of course, comes from 1A. We just wanted to put it in so that people knew that the landscape part of this had been approved and had DOTD approval too, in terms of being able to cite things in terms of automobiles. Next.
And excuse me, that concludes your 10 minutes to present. The committee can now ask any questions that they may want to ask for clarification. And I will just point out that if the committee feels that additional details are needed in order to complete our review, I already spoke with the applicant about that, and possibly we can be clear about what we need and they can come back at the January meeting. Or if you feel we have enough to review now, that would be fine. But again, this document shows more scope than they're really requesting us to review at this time. So if we want to have specific questions about the scope that we're reviewing, now would be a good time to discuss that.
Can we get a definition of the scope that we're reviewing right now? Because are we only looking at 1B?
Yes, we're looking at, there's the 400, 500, 600, and 700 block. And the 400 block is going to be parking, storage for the markets, and stormwater management. So already we can see that not enough details are provided for that block in terms of parking layout and pedestrian circulation within that area. And we may want to see further details on the storage containers that would store the temporary markets. And then on the 500, 600, and 700 blocks, that's where we're looking specifically at the murals. Now, we're not really commenting on artistic expression of the murals, but only would be saying if the materials are suitable. And then the fourth item is that there's going to be some site improvements around the public markets. And I'm seeing that additionally, there's the playground that we would be reviewing.
Can we go to the 2 more slides down, please?
Did I mention the canopy? Because that's kind of the main element.
That's what we're going to. So on this This image is very similar to the image that we were sold in the first review in 2018. So my question is the funding in place to put this in place in this project?
Yeah, the answer is yes, the funding's in place, and B, there will be improvements to this, to make sure that it fits with all the elements that we have there. For instance,
One
now
of the
that-
main things to keep in mind in terms of the improvement is because DOTD, to our requests, did put up the gutter system. So we do have to take that into account in terms of how we put up the canopy this time because the gutter system was not there previously.
Okay, well, that kind of addresses my next question is who's actually putting up the gutter system? Is it going to be you or is it going to be DOTD?
DOTD.
Okay, and then, so like this image shows all of the cross beams as being white. Are y'all going to repaint them or just clean them to the base concrete? Or are you going to do the paint, the painting was never finished. And I love this idea. I don't want y'all to think that I don't love this idea. But I want to see it executed and completed, not it's kind of been left half done. And that worries me. So that's why I'm asking about funding. You're selling us this image, which is very bright, which I like. I think that's going to sell the space for people. So I just want to make sure this is what we're talking about.
The answer is yes, and those areas will not be to white. They'll be actually painted as you see us doing on some of the other slides, and actually going back over where the marking from from the rain has put black spaces on those or column in those areas. But it'll be to a painted background.
The other thing to add, sir, and that's a great question. So as the private partner, we've been really excited about the philanthropic community that has come on board to support this project. And so we're also, of course, excited that our public partner, the city, you all, have allowed us to really partner with the Arts Council. So the Arts Council has come on to manage the arts piece so that there are no stagnations in terms of the project scope or certainly the project's completion. So we are appreciative to have their expertise in terms of really making sure that community is fully involved and that it's fully funded. So the Arts Council has come on board to lead that.
I have a couple more questions, and one of them is the playground area. I'm not opposed to the playground area. I don't necessarily think this is the greatest spot for a playground. But if you're going to put in the playground, there needs to be some kind of barrier to keep kids from running into the roadway. Because the playground is within 50 feet of a roadway. I really need to see something to keep the children from running into the road. As well as the safety surfacing underneath it. So you're gonna have to build up some way and still make it accessible. And when you look at the selection of play equipment, please do make sure that it is an accessible play piece. The one that you're showing in your images on page 34, that's not an accessible unit.
So just want to clarify a few things again, recognizing this is a public-private partnership. We are all about making sure that we identify the best resources for success. So this project is actually being run through Play Build, which does most of their programming along the neutral grounds, and certainly they kind of take over space to make them inhabitable for children. This is just one component of it. And the exciting part, and what we'll probably do for the next time, Austin, is to share the slides of how we activate the space with Play Build so that they can see how the children are protected from the street and how it's monitored through the Play Build staff and how they are engaging young people. But the area will be this is a container. So that's the innovation part. This will be closed off, so it will not be in use unless there's actual activation by Play Build under the bridge. We just want to make that clear that there's a space for young people when the marketplace is happening, that there's a space for young people when other community events are happening under the bridge. So we wanted to be clear, again, that we include our youthful spirits, but it will be managed by a particular organization.
So is it gonna be the play equipment that's showing on the left, or is it the play equipment that's on the right? Which one are we talking about?
It'll be a combination of both, but we wanted just to be clear in terms of kind of how we could manipulate the container to be something as detail oriented as the slide on the left. But certainly we wanted you to see the container aspect, which is the design on the right. Austin, please jump in.
Yeah, yes. The one on the left would be something that would be a second edition after the one on the right. And it's a very popular, safe system that has gotten a lot of national recognition. That's why we used it as a template in this case.
Okay, I just remember that it has to be accessible to
Not a
all
problem.
ability. So I just want y'all to remember that.
As well, Danny, since this will be a capital projects coordinated effort, we do have specifications for safety standards and specifications for playgrounds, which I'm sure the project manager will be responsible to incorporate into the plans.
Absolutely.
I want to echo what Danny is saying. When we're looking at these items, there's sort of a little bit of a gap between concept and actual design with details. So going back to the canopy, I mean, it's a concept right now. It needs to be a little bit more detailed so we understand what we're reviewing. And then shifting back to the play equipment, we do have rigorous standards and specifications for play equipments and city projects. So once again, the details do need to be fleshed out and included in the plan so we can review.
Yeah, I think conceptually, I don't see anything that was different from I see some little differences, but like the kiosk and the small market foods and using the shipping containers for like the cafe unit, I think all of those are great ideas. And I think conceptually, I'm on board. You know, I'm totally on board with it. Now the details need to come out. So at first I was reviewing this as this is your final submittal, but I realized that this is more, you're looking for conceptual, is this okay? And then you're going to come back with the details. Is that correct?
Correct. In those two cases, yes.
And more than just those two cases.
Yeah, but I'm saying the canopy and the playground. Yeah.
Because all of this is really still at a conceptual level. And then I mean, I know you've got the plans laid out and everything. On your landscape plan, y'all are using, this is very much a single point, but you're using aspidistra and it's going to be on the west side of the interstate. I would ask you to look at using palm grass instead. It has the same characteristics, but it's going to be much more hardy in that condition.
Okay, I think that general comment covers
Okay.
everything. The drawings are a bit conceptual and we will need more detailed drawings of the two things that we mentioned, as well as the parking and the storage units. So
Hey, Haley, let me say one more thing, and this is basically echoing something you said at the beginning. A pedestrian plan is critical with this, just to understand how people are moving into the spaces and crossing the streets. So pedestrian plan is critical.
Okay.
Incorporating the sidewalks on South Claiborne.
Not a problem at all.
is there any further committee discussion? If not, we'll move on to item number 4. This property is at 4338 Elysian Fields Avenue. This is going to go to the City Planning Commission. It's a proposal to construct a community facility on a site with over 100 feet of frontage in an EC overlay. The staff planner is not yet assigned. We have Seneca Toussaint signed up to speak on behalf of this application. And Seneca, you now have 10 minutes to present.
Okay, and I have Daniel Parrish, who's the architect for the project, on as well. Daniel, you mind giving just a brief little overview of our plan? facility?
Yes. So what the owner is trying to do is do a community center. This is the church entity that owns the property currently. And what they would love to happen here is a community center. They do a lot of community service with the food bank services as well as disaster relief. And they want this to be able to help with the health in the community. They also have a partnership with the local university so that they can also do help with that same entity there on at this facility. Currently, what'll be there is, I think in our floor plans we had a basketball gym, but it's mainly multi-purpose, as well as kitchen, office, and restrooms.
Mhm.
And that's pretty much it. And Seneca, I'm gonna turn it back over unless anyone has any questions.
Okay, and I believe, I think, as far as the initial use, we've submitted all of the notifications and the complete package. So I think we've covered everything on as far as those requirements.
Okay, thank you. Is there any committee discussion on this item?
Is parking allowed in the front of a building on Elysian Fields?
It is in the zoning district.
And we've worked with some of the departments and made revisions along the way to the site.
Does it also, are street trees required, or is this more of a different zoning that doesn't require street trees?
It's a residential district which does not require street trees.
Hi, this is Lewis with Public Works. We want to look at the driveway. So the driveways in the city, it looks like you have a mountable curb here. So we would just be running a mountable curb, or we would be running a kind of a more straight driveway from that curb. It would meet the sidewalk at sidewalk grade, so there wouldn't be any ramps like you're showing.
Okay.
On page 5 of the PDF.
Okay.
So it's a little different than what you got drawn. And then, we'd like to see a sidewalk connection to Stephen Gerard and Elysian Fields, if you could.
Okay.
Coming awfully close to it. I don't know what your grades are over there, but we normally like to see some kind of connection besides just that driveway.
Okay, if we can extend our driveway to Stephen Gerard, not our driveway, our sidewalk along the building. Okay.
And the only other comment I have is these plans, you will need to submit a tree protection plan for the 2 live oaks that are existing in the public right of way.
This is Stephen Kroll with City Planning. I'd encourage you to look at relocating the dumpster possibly back here. It's just, it's a highly visible location. And I'd encourage you putting it in a more inconspicuous location.
Okay.
Can we
I'm
talk
curious-
about elevations, the elevations of the structure? I think Plan A 4.0.
Do you happen to know the page number in the PDF?
No.
20.
Was that 20, Eleanor?
Yes, page 20. Can the applicant sort of describe the materials?
Yes, right now they have wood in the main entry of that. In the main entry, they have the glazing in the wood, and then they have a metal paneling horizontal on the side with the glass, with the glazing for the light into the gymnasium.
I find the Does the wood panel project at all, or is it coplanar with the
Yeah,
metal?
it projects 1 foot off of the facade.
Okay. Does it wrap around as wood?
Yes, it does return as wood at that entry point. So that entry point sticks out 1 foot off of the elevation of the rest of the building, and it does wrap return back into the building.
I guess my feeling would be, I think that projection might be more successful if it was done in metal panel, but maybe a different treatment of metal panel. I find the insertion of wood at this part of the building just kind of out of set and maybe not as successful as it could be. And then my other question was for the CPC staff. Do they have glazing requirements at the front elevation they need to meet?
So there isn't a requirement that a certain percentage of the elevation be transparent. There are requirements that windows and openings recess or project from the facade, but in terms of a percentage, that requirement is not in place.
Okay. And I guess I was wondering, those windows as proposed, are those are not obscured by anything on the interior?
No, that is correct.
And is there a reason why they don't happen on the other side of the entry portal? Is that because that's the dressing?
You're talking about the elevation on the screen, the bottom. Oh, over there. We have that. We don't have anything at that elevation. We can add one at the second floor on the right side, but we cannot do it at the bottom per the floor plan. That's the restrooms at the bottom on the right side of the entry. But on the left, on the right side on the second floor, we can add those windows in just to match the left side.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful. Also, it would be helpful
Okay.
if there's an organization to the windows, their sizes and locations. And I don't know how the rest of the panel feels about it, but I think maybe some divisions might be helpful, just to sort of break up the facade a little bit and add some interest.
Yeah, I have general comments on that. I guess the overall impact of the building, just the way it's oriented on the site, the use of materials, the asymmetry of the entry, but you still have two doors on the Esplanade side, or Elysian, what is this, Elysian Fields?
Yes.
It's a little, the impact's a little bit, I don't know, it's a little bit monolithic. I wish the design could be a little bit more sensitive to its siting, adjacent to the residential buildings. And also it's a corner site, which is always an opportunity for a building. And somehow there's a little bit of a disconnect with the two entry sequences, the use of material, somewhat randomness in window locations, and in the racing stripes, which could be interesting, but right now it just seems like everything is fighting. Can you comment on those?
Well, when we spoke with the owner, they were definitely looking in a different direction than the neighborhood context, but we definitely do not want to cause rift or issue with it. They were thinking of something a little bit more contemporary and modern, but we understand if we need to fit the context of the neighborhood, we can definitely dial that backwards and do that, and more incorporate, more masonry if that will help. And add to the elevations. But this was, more of our conversation of what our design intent was. They had definitely seen the patterns of the different patterns on the building, but we could definitely take those stripes, either make them a little bit more bolder, or I would say just remove it all together. But I don't want a plain elevation because just don't want to say, hey, we put a metal building here and it looks like a warehouse.
It kind of does.
We're trying to be sensitive.
Yeah, it kind of does look like a warehouse, especially with the material on the elevation. And then there's a lack of distinction of where it turns into the roof. So it does have this heavy monolithic feel to it. I don't think the contemporary vernacular of materials is the problem. I think it's the general overall design. Eleanor, do you want to?
Actually, I want to piggyback on something you just said, Miguel. The problem for me is that this building is at the back of the lot and it should be at the front of the lot. It's a corner property. We have required this on others to either put the parking on the side and have the building be on the corner, or have the building completely face Elysian Fields and have the parking against the cemetery. The context of, to me, it is up against the cemeteries. And so it's not really, it doesn't bother me, but it kind of looks like a warehouse for the
And we can work on the exterior skin. Now, let me ask you something in that regard about the moving it to the curb. We've tried to move the front, and I think the problem is going to be access. And if we lose parking or don't have adequate number of parking, would there be some kind of variance when flipping the building?
Aren't y'all asking for a variance
If we move the
now?
building? Well, I would probably have to if I had to. Well, I couldn't fit the building of its current size if I had to move the building to the corner, because we did look at that. And then put all the parking in the back, and then you would have to, of course, not come off Elysian Fields, but off the side street to get into the property. So pretty much the front would face the cemetery. Even though I would have a front on facing Elysian Fields, we would technically have to have two fronts, one for the parking lot and one for Elysian Fields. But I think when we did our schematics, the parking, we lost parking. But my question is just, if we don't meet the parking requirements, is there a mechanism for asking for a variance?
I don't know how you would lose parking if you just flip the property line. If you just flip the layout and you come in off of Stephen Girard as from the end, you're not losing any parking. I don't understand how you're losing parking when all you have to do is literally mirror it and remove that driveway coming off of Elysian Fields and put it coming at the end off of Stephen Girard, which will allow your customers to come in off of Elysian Fields, regardless of the direction of Elysian Fields they're on. Now they're going to have to make a U-turn to make that corner turn, and so they're going to be going across the traffic. Whereas if they're coming off Stephen Girard, you've got an immediate you can go left or right on Stephen Girard, and then you can go left or right on Elysian Fields, versus you only have one direction to come in and out of on Elysian Fields. And so I really, really don't buy that you can't have pedestrian access to Stephen Girard and Elysian Fields and vehicular access easier if you flip this site to have the building in the front and the parking lot in the back between the building and the cemetery. I just don't find
not a problem.
And this is Haley. This has not yet been assigned to a staff member at City Planning yet. However, just to answer your question, when we review the conditional use, there is an opportunity to review a consideration for a variance for parking if it's necessary. And I just want to point out that this is the advice from the DAC to reorient the location of the structure. It would be great if you could take these comments into consideration and do that. However, as Stephen mentioned, okay, great. I just wanted to let you know that's your option.
Oh, no, you guys have recommended that on another site and we totally flipped the building and redid the site. We can do it again on this one. We definitely understand. So no, we're not trying to be objective, just what issues we've had before. So, but please don't say we're trying to be objective to it. Not at all. We're open to any comments that the board, the DAC has.
I don't think you're being objective to it at all. It's an enhancement corridor, and if we allow parking in the front, then we're going against every recommendation we've made. Just like you said, we made the same recommendation for you on another piece of property. The same exact recommendation of just flipping it. So I appreciate your willingness to work on that. I think
Oh no, we
building will
definitely
be
will. And
really
we'll try
cool.
to. And what we'll do is we'll try to see what we can do with the building in the same regard as we now it being a corner building and pushed up against the curb. And we'll see what we can do to kind of help delineate just if keeping the metal, but not just being perfectly, especially with the parapet heights and then maybe some protrusions and just playing with the elevation of it. So to break it up and hopefully that'll help. So we can definitely play with the skin and doing that once we move that.
And I think you have some foundation planting requirements. Planning can answer that question better, but for your on-site stuff, I think if you do flip it, you'll actually have a better opportunity to do the foundation plantings and remove some of that sidewalk. Because then you can use the Stephen Gerrard sidewalk and the Elysian Field sidewalk as part of your site circulation versus having to put in your own sidewalk, and that'll reduce your stormwater runoff as well.
I think also
Okay.
flipping it will give you the opportunity to play up the corner as an entry, which is fairly, common for corner buildings, which could provide some opportunities for some design interest at the corner that could go a long way to, enlivening the building and helping it to feel more nestled in this corridor.
Okay. Yeah.
Can you kind of talk to us about the two entryways and why you have two entries in the front?
Well, originally what we had was one, the main entry, of course, being the one where the wood paneling. The other entry was mainly there because of this egress out of the gym, but also what the church had looked at was when you have disaster relief, you have mass food drives, and you have mass people coming in the building, it's easier to have them circulate directly into the gym because they said, hey, we will have clothes giveaway, we'll have food giveaways, and we want to be able to just get people in and out and not circulate. Hey, in front, I went through the lobby, I went into the gym, I got my food, and I came out. The point of having the double door entryway was to get people in and out of the building, or even being a serving point. They said for disaster relief, with one of the entities that they work with, they may have the gym full of goods and things to give away. Literally, you can just line the sidewalk and directly hand things out. So that was the point of having that second entryway right there off of that.
Okay, it may shift to the rear of the building now that you're putting the parking in the rear, and the main entry may go towards the corner. And this may help with how the organization of the windows and the structure look.
Of course. No, I think what's going to probably happen is when we move it, when we flip it, the building will kind of get mirrored. So we'll tell again, we'll try to do is have some of these same elements, taking in consideration of what the board has said today in the front, but also trying to fill that corner to make sure we have a nice corner entry, into the building. So we definitely work that in.
Okay. Is there any further committee discussion?
This all sounds very promising.
Thank
Awesome.
you.
So what would be the next steps once we have our revisions?
Well, we haven't moved to the motion yet, but it may seem likely that this would come back before DAC. So, and also I'm not sure when it's scheduled for the City Planning Commission meeting. But Stephen, can you confirm whether time allows for us to bring this back before DAC?
I think there's a good chance that we'll be able to get it to DAC in January. It kind of depends on how this and the assignments that haven't yet been made shake out. We may end up deferring it, which would allow time for another DAC round. We may not, depending on kind of what our staffing looks like. So I think that's a question we'll just have to figure out once we get the revised plans, and we'll look at where things are.
Okay.
Oh,
Alrighty.
I mean, I think I will say that I think that the comments the committee has made are very clear, both to us as a staff and to the applicant. So I don't know that it needs to come back to DAC. I think we can handle these comments administratively.
All right.
okay.
Now we're moving on to item number 5 on the
Thanks,
DAC
guys.
agenda. Thank you. On the DAC agenda,
Thank you.
this is for design review docket 7621 for Treme Recreation Center at 900 North Villeray Street. We previously reviewed this at the DAC meeting, and we had requested that the applicant come back and provide us floor plans so that we could review alternative locations for the elevator, because it seemed that replacing it at the main entry was not a satisfactory solution. And so between that time and now, Capital Projects, they met with the community, and they have also added to their presentation additional justifications for why the elevator could not be located in an alternative location. And City Planning has spoken with Capital Projects and said that the advice of the DAC is, because this is a public project, and so it's not binding, it's up to the sponsoring agency who submitted it whether or not to take the advice. So just keep that in mind. And now we have, I believe we have Greg DeCourcy signed up to speak on behalf of this application. Greg, you now have 10 minutes.
Actually, it's Carlos Grion that's going to be making the presentation.
Okay, thanks, Robert. Carlos,
Carlos, you on the
now-
phone?
Okay, yeah, this is Carlos Duran. And actually, Robert, so Greg DeCourcy, our architect, is on vacation. So I was sitting in for him on a meeting. And so, Robert, you're gonna have to help me here because
Sure.
my
Well, let me just go
knowledge
ahead
is
and
limited. But I know from talking to Greg that several locations for the elevator were looked at and considered. And because of code and because of structural issues and space issues, egress and those kind of things, the elevator wound back up at this position, and it's just the most logical place to put the elevator. And so that's where it's at.
One of the other things too that everyone needs to understand, that the back of the building does not provide the security aspects of it. And it also is a state fire marshal requirement that putting an elevator with an exit there is just not provide enough space for exiting the building. The main reason that we decided on this area is, one, the security from the front desk, which is directly across from it. It is accessible to the elderly, and they don't have to go the long distance of the corridor, and they can just easily go into the elevator to the second floor. So, like Carla said, we viewed many different aspects to this. The location that we have also provides sufficient steps for the elevator foundations, and it creates a better building aspect there.
Okay, thank you. Does that conclude your presentation?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And I would just like to ask, how did the community meetings go?
We arranged 2 different meetings, 3 weeks apart. There was nobody came.
Okay, thank you. Is there any further committee discussion?
Hi. We go back to the site plan showing this proposed sidewalk.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I assume you know this, but there is a hill there. So this looks like pretty good in 2D, but are y'all planning on building some kind of retaining wall or regrading the site somehow?
We did not plan that I can recall to regrading. There is an existing sidewalk in there that we were just going to re-pour.
Is an existing sidewalk that's already where
That's
that new
correct.
sidewalk says?
Yes.
How recently was that built?
It's been there since the building was built.
We're talking about this sidewalk that's being called out as a new sidewalk.
Right, I see that's right off of the main walkway and it leads into the playground area. There was a more straighter sidewalk in there with just curvatured a little bit. The elevation doesn't change till maybe about 20 feet further inside of that area.
But
the
there
new
wasn't a
sidewalk-
sidewalk there.
There's no sidewalk there. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay,
All right.
I thought there were.
No.
There's no sidewalk there, but there's this landscaping, there's elevation. So, I mean, it's like a small hill there. So, it's not, I don't think it's as simple as what it's shown. I think it would require some kind of regrading or either that or cutting into that and building, some retaining walls on one side or the other in order to make it work as it's shown.
Robert, what's the funding source for this project?
It's
I have
state
a very-
funding,
It's what?
state capital outlay and bond money.
You do know that every time you dig around the Tremaine Center, you have to have archaeologists.
Yes, we do. And we have
Okay.
already contacted the archaeologists on that.
Okay, good. Lewis is right. I mean, that was going to be my point, is that in order to do that sidewalk, you're going to either have to cut into it to have it at grade with the other sidewalks, or it doesn't matter, you're still going to have to excavate.
Right.
You're
We'll
gonna
do
need
some
to-
minimal excavation in there.
And then, because it has to be accessible, so you can't have more than 5% slope.
Correct.
And then, tell me again why it can't be in the stair tower. I know I keep harping on it, but I
The
just
stair
don't buy
tower
it.
in the rear has
Not
a
the
side.
rear, not the one in the rear. I know that's the fire exit, all that other
Okay.
stuff. I'm talking about the one that's right there, immediately
That was
to the
the most-
right of where it is located, in the music room, and then it lifts up to upstairs where there's just a planter right now that could be a lift. You don't even have to do a complete elevator shaft. You can just do a lift system and have it go up right there. I don't understand why it can't be put in that space when that's what that space was designed for.
We looked at lifts and it just doesn't give the flexibility for the elderly in there. This is more a secure area to put an elevator in this location.
It also
looked at-
blocks up, wait, It also blocks off the only building entrance that is used by the public, except
No,
you've got the
no, sir.
daycare entrance. Don't tell me that, I know you got the daycare, but that's not where the public comes in. The public uses this building, and this is the entry that's used as the address for the building. So are you gonna change the address of the building to St.
No.
Philip Street? Then, again, I'm voicing my objection to this.
Well, we looked at all the different share lifts along the corridor. It didn't make sense for it. The entrance, when I was over there, you're generally locked at nighttime. And the entrance on St. Philip Street is one of the main entrances that the general public is using at this time. In fact, the last time I was there was last Tuesday night, and the center had already blocked it with tables and chairs because they had a dance recital going on at the same time, and they wanted to check everyone in there for temperature and entry points. So they left the St. Philip Street entrance open. They were not using this North Villery exit entrance. So I beg to differ with that with you.
Okay, well, thank you for your comments, everyone. I have one last one if anyone doesn't have any more comments, but is the elevator required?
It's an ADA requirement.
It is a requirement, even though it's an existing structure?
Yeah, even though it's an existing door. I'm doing the same thing at the Knicks Library as well, putting a chairlift there. But some of the ADA requirements that the city has to do, and probably Miguel and Danny probably know more about it than I do, but it is an existing, and this gives the elderly and the handicap accessibility to the elliptical equipment on the second floor.
So that's the main, the exercise equipment on the second
Yes.
floor, that's the space. And is there any ideas of just relocating that to the first floor?
There's no other space in there because the pool is all the bottom floor on one side, and then the auditorium and basketball court on the opposite side. So there's no other place other than the second floor where they have the exercise equipment located at.
It's exercise, and it's also, there was an arts and crafts room, I think, in ballet practice and all. There was
Right,
two
there's a dance room
multi-purpose
on the
rooms.
second floor. Yeah.
Okay, all righty. If there's no further committee discussion, we'll hold on making a motion till we come back from the 5-minute recess. And we'll move on to item number 6. This is design review docket 12321. It's a proposal by the Orleans Parish School Board for a renovation to an existing primary educational facility. The work includes a new exterior stair and there's also a new perimeter fence and gate with new permeable pavers at the main entrance. This is a DAC only review. It doesn't require design review by zoning. We have Matt Norton and Nate Garnage signed up to speak on behalf of this application, and you all now have 10 minutes to present.
Yeah, thank you. This is Matt Norton. Let me just give you some background on this. This property is, this block is one property with both the Forshey School facing Ferret and the Allen School building, which this is facing Loyola. Just some background on it, the Sci-High Charter School was occupying this building until the beginning of this year. They, of course, moved into their new facility over in Bienville. So the OPSB has leased this building to the Lusher Charter School, who intends to move their middle school students from the Forshey building into this building. And so the Forshey building will become exclusively the high school building. And so this project is really just to spruce up the school in preparation for the students moving into this facility in August of next year, 2022, yeah. Basically the bulk of this project is really interior improvements, including LED lighting, painting, refurbishment of flooring, restoration of some of the rooms inside that still have historical detailing. As far as the exterior portion of this project, the building itself, we're applying a transparent water repellent, the type that is approved by the National Park Service for this kind of historic structure. There'll be some repointing of the brick. We'll be painting the windows and doors, which the windows were just restored about 6 years ago on this building. And then the only other exterior improvement is adding a 70-inch high security fence around the perimeter, just inside the sidewalk, with gates, of course, at several points. We won't be disturbing any of the existing landscaping. This fence will, there's no landscaping in this project, so this fence will move in between the existing crepe myrtles and trees and landscaping. As far as pervious surfaces, we're actually reducing the non-pervious hard paving on the site by about 2,000 square feet. This project will be part of the stormwater management plan that we submitted not too long ago, that you guys reviewed, concerning the sports field that is now under construction between these two buildings. So it will tie into that management system. I know that the application mentions a new exterior stair, but that is actually some repair of two existing fire escapes that are in the interior courtyard of the building. So that is really just about replacing some of the deteriorated steel and bringing the railings up to current code. And that is the scope of the project.
Okay, thank you very much.
Can
Is
we
there any?
drawing?
Stephen, are you able to flip through?
There,
We can.
yeah, I'm flipping through. If there's any particular sheet anyone wants to see, just let me know. All right, is it not displaying?
We're seeing A101 and only the image at the top right has become viewable. It's slowly populating in.
Okay, I'm on A102 now. Are you seeing A102?
We're seeing A102. However, the floor plan is not, it's just slowly coming available.
Yeah, got it. Okay, okay. Just wanted to make sure things didn't freeze up or anything.
I'll just jump in real quick. Public Works, I need to see any sidewalk repairs that are necessary. It looks like, looking at the most recent photos, looks like there's kind of some lingering issues on Joseph Street, and there's probably a few other places where you just have some settled sidewalk that are kind of creating some trip hazards, or either that or kind of sloping sidewalks. So you could just walk around and go ahead and, I mean, it's just small stuff, but just pick up any necessary sidewalk repairs. There's some broken sidewalks on Ferret Street as well.
On particularly on Joseph Street.
Yeah, I'd say Joseph Street, it looks like it has about maybe like 20 feet of sidewalk or something like that. That looks like it could be replaced. Some around the trees in the middle of the block. Looks like there's some settlement around those trees, probably caused by some roots.
Yeah, we'll definitely we'll take a look at that.
I don't really have any comments.
If there's no further committee discussion,
Oh, could I ask, sorry, Haley, could I ask one more question?
Mhm.
Just out of interest, I guess. You're removing a sidewalk, or not really a sidewalk, but a walkway from Loyola Avenue in the site plan. That goes to that gate. What brought that on?
Is that, do you mean on the Joseph Street side, I think? Where
This
we're,
is coming from the Loyola Avenue side, going to the side of the school building in the back.
yeah, from the lower, on that plan, you mean the lower portion there?
Mhm.
Yeah, there was originally the building had two entryways. Sometime during the 80s or 90s, that second lobby was turned into a classroom, and the facade was replaced with windows instead of doors. So basically that big paving that used to be where the buses would drop off the students and they'd go into the building kind of leads to nowhere now. So we're just taking the advantage of removing that and creating some more grassy area.
So that's we're talking about the same thing, the walkway that goes along the face of the building to Loyola.
I think if they're talking there, that Loyola is the main entry there, and right now they have concrete paving that's in really bad shape at a kind of little entry plaza to the building. So we're pulling that up and replacing it with permeable pavers on there.
All right, I'll try this again.
Are we talking about the same things?
So, all right, so you're on Loyola Avenue, about say 100 feet from Joseph Street. There's a sidewalk. You're calling it to be demolished in the demolition plans. It's just like a 6-foot sidewalk.
Yeah, that's kind of a sidewalk that's really not used. And again, that was just an opportunity to take some paving up that was really kind of superfluous there.
Okay, so you're not going to have there's a gate there today, right? There's like a historic fence.
Yeah,
with a gate. So
you can see where it's pointing to. There's a existing kind of like 3 foot, 3.5 foot high steel picket fence there with a gate in it. So we're demolishing that and putting the new fence at the property line.
And the new fence won't have okay, I see. So
and
you're bringing the fence all the way out. All right. Okay.
Right. Exactly.
Gotcha.
Do you have a detail in this set showing how the fence is going to be installed? No.
Yeah, I mean it's basically in the spec, and it's a 70-inch steel picket fence. It'll have 2 rails at the top and 1 rail at the bottom with the little arrow expressions at the pickets. It'll closely resemble the one that Fortier has facing that has going around it now on Ferret Street.
I'm less concerned about how it looks as to how it's going to be installed, seeing as you're hitting quite a few, or at least 2. You're impacting several public street trees. So I don't see a tree protection plan, and I don't see how that fence installation is detailed around these trees where you're taking out and the existing fence and installing the new fence behind the trees. So I think putting that fence right up against the trees is a really bad idea.
Yeah.
So there may be a need to bump out that fence at those points so that the trees have plenty of room to grow and they won't mess up your fence really quick.
Yeah, I think
that's along, I guess, Joseph Street.
Yeah, those are very large crepe myrtles there, and
Okay.
yeah, we will pull the fence back from the property line to allow them to have some room there to breathe.
Yeah, and then you've got a lot of instances where there's a lot of little trees that are going to be impacted by the fence, but there was no fence detail provided. So I don't know if it's going to be, is it a running foundation fence? Is it a,
I
post
think
install or what is?
if you pull it on this sheet, there's a little foundation detail to the right. If you
Okay. Yeah. That's it now.
So it's just at the post, there's a little concrete footing. And I believe the posts,
Permeable paving detail. Yeah. Got it.
right.
When I was blowing it up, it didn't blow up that side.
Yeah.
So when you still need to kind of talk about that situation with the trees, because you don't want to, try to punch through the main root of a tree or something.
Right. Okay. I think on the western portion or the western portion of the site, from the main entry over on Loyola Avenue and along Nashville, we're basically replacing an existing chain link fence exactly where the chain link fence is now. So we could go back in the same post locations.
Well, aren't you going to pull it to your property line? Because it's kind of over the property line right now.
It should be just within the property line there.
That's not how it's shown. If you zoom in, it's actually shown off the property line. And that might be just for clarity purposes, but just double check when you're actually laying it out on your survey and have your surveyor make sure that the fence is actually at the property line.
Yeah.
Is there any further committee discussion?
I just had a question regarding the historic fencing that you're removing. Do you plan to salvage that fencing?
Not at this point. I mean, it's in pretty bad shape, most of the panels.
Because it looks like the fencing is the fencing that turns the corner from Joseph to the Lusher side of the campus. Looks like a pretty intricate patterning of fencing. Is that being removed between the two campuses?
Along Joseph Street between the two.
It turns the corner from Joseph Street, and then is sort of between the Sci-High campus and the field. There's a sort of a brick base and then some more detailed iron fencing. I guess I would just recommend or encourage you to salvage as much of this fencing as possible, possibly, resale at a salvage yard, because it's,
Oh yeah.
historic, solid metal picket fencing that could be reused in many other situations.
Yeah, definitely. We'll definitely do that.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, moving on to the last item on today's agenda. This is a design review application that we received for the expansion of an existing elementary school campus. And the reason that it requires DAC review is because the new addition of an approximately 4,000 square foot building brings the total square footage above 40,000 square feet for the campus. What we already received was the campus development plan, because this also requires review because it's an educational facility. But however, at this time, we don't have details for the building addition for the elevator. Oh, well, we don't have elevations for this, but we do have, it's appearing that we have the perspective view.
Yeah, next couple pages are just elevations as you flip through. Sorry.
Okay, great. I wasn't sure if we received it, but Stephen received it. Okay, thank you. So we have Angela signed up to speak on behalf of this. And Angela, you now have 10 minutes to present.
Thanks, Hallery. Good morning. My name is Angela Morton. I'm with Mathis Prayer Architects. And as Haley mentioned, this is an existing, it's a public charter school. It's the Encore Charter School on Arch Street. And the reason for this expansion, just for your reference, is having to do with educational models. The school is not expanding their population, but what they've found is that they need more small group instruction space to keep kids up at grade level. So this expansion is designed to pull the 7th and 8th grade classrooms out of the building so that 3 existing classrooms can be converted in the building to small group instruction. So in terms of site planning, parking, all those type of things, it's a trade-off of elementary school classrooms from inside the building to this new addition. And as you mentioned too, the original building is 38,000 square feet, and we restored it in 2018, I believe, and renovated it. Then, so there were 2 subsequent additions. One is the Performing Arts building on the opposite side. So we're drawing some cues for this building's design from that addition. The main building is a brick building, part of our great brick school buildings in the city, designed by, who you think would be designed by for a school building. So what we're doing here on this building is drawing some cues from that other addition. So we're using both a horizontal corrugated metal panel and a vertical corrugated metal panel that draws for the 2 additions that we did previously. And there are, as I mentioned, 4 classrooms in this building. We've got 3 that face the playgrounds and 1 that faces the street. Each classroom has 2 windows in that aspect. And we're also doing, stormwater was not in place at the time we did the original renovation. So we're starting the master plan for stormwater with this project. So part of the impetus for the sloping roof is also to direct stormwater away from the current asphalt playgrounds where we can gather and collect it in a stormwater system that runs to the street. And internal to this new building is a covered play area. The Encore School is focused on the arts. So one of their great needs is a larger gathering space for theater production. So that outdoor space is going to work as an outdoor theater for them as well and follows the roof line. I think that is it. Yeah. Questions? So what you're looking at is the North Dorchenwash Street view right now. And Danny will owe you a foundation. We will obviously follow Article 23 in terms of landscaping needs for the new building addition, just the new building portion, right, that we're dealing with on the site at this time.
Can you go back to the site plan real quick, please?
So the new building is the unhatched building in this lot, in this view. North Dorchenwash was currently just will be slated for complete replacement. So that's going to be happening simultaneously with our construction. So all the sidewalks on that side are going to be replaced. I didn't also mention too, there's 2 walkway canopies that we are going through BZA waiver for that we're extending out to the property line from the 2 main entrances. Since we're extending past the setback, the 20-foot setback.
Do you have a picture of those?
They're in the walkway canopies, they're in the 3D view. If you go to the second document, yeah. So they're sort of just simple aluminum canopy systems of 2 levels, with respect to the steps coming off the building, and then 1 wider canopy.
Okay.
Site's currently completely fenced with chain link fencing.
I don't have any other questions.
Seeing as there's no further committee discussion, this concludes the presentation of dockets. We will now recess for for 5 minutes, after which public comment will be read into the record as part of the consideration of dockets. We will return at 11:30. Okay, this concludes the 5-minute recess, and we will begin with the consideration of dockets, including the public comment portion of the meeting. Stephen, have we received any public comments?
We have not. There's no public comment.
Okay, thank you. And so since we didn't receive any public comments, there will be no more opportunity for the applicants to talk unless there's questions by the committee members. So at this time, is the committee ready to make a motion on item number 3, design review docket 12721 for the Claiborne Cultural Innovation District project?
And this would be for us to see this again when they have detailed drawings, correct? If we say, I mean, this is for them to come back, right?
Yes, I would think we would require a deferral to allow the applicant time to submit detailed drawings.
So my motion would be to conceptually approve the plans, but a deferral in terms of plan, so that they come back for DAC to see the details. That makes sense?
Yes. So we have a motion by Parks and Parkways for conceptual approval with the applicant to return before DAC with detailed drawings. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second by Capital Projects. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? And the motion passes. We'll move on to the consideration of item number 4 for our zoning docket for a new Life Wellness Center at 4338 Elysian Fields Avenue. And we had discussed shifting the building's footprint. And since this is going to city planning, possibly we can move for approval subject to some specific provisos.
I'll make a motion to approve subject to the applicant looking at the site, putting the building on the front on Elysian Fields, other site revisions in terms of parking and sidewalk access and site landscaping, and then for the architecture, looking at how the entries and the corner are treated with respect to parking and the public realm.
I'll second.
May I just, before we second, may I just ask if there's any architectural provisos that we want to add to that?
No wood.
I guess I figured that the design recommendations would be included that were made.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion by Parks and Parkways and a second by HDLC. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? And the motion passes. Next is item number 5, the reconsideration of Treme Elevator.
I want to recommend to approve, subject to having some amount of documentation of public engagement responses and maybe addressing the issues with the sidewalks, with the paths that the DPW brought up.
Okay, we have a motion by Capital Projects for approval, subject to documentation of public engagement and the sidewalk modifications that were discussed. Do we have a second? Okay, seeing that we did not receive a second, do we have an alternative motion?
Haley, I'll second it. I'm a little slow in the trigger.
Oh,
Second by
sorry.
City Planning.
We have a second by City Planning. I'll do a roll call vote. Stephen,
Aye.
Haley, nay. Danny,
Nay.
Miguel,
Yes.
Eleanor,
Nay.
Louis,
Nay.
and Lindsay's absent. So we have 2 yays, 4 nays, and the motion fails. Do we have a subsequent motion? Okay, so it goes forward with no recommendation. And item number 6 on the agenda is for design review 12321 for renovations at an existing primary educational facility at 5625 Loyola Avenue.
Make the motion to approve with the recommendations of the DAC.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by HDLC for approval, subject to the recommendations that were made, seconded by Parks and Parkways. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And the motion passes. Item number 8 is the consideration of design review docket 13021 for an addition to a existing elementary campus at 2518 Arch Street.
I'll make the motion to approve subject to any DAC recommendations that were made.
Do we have a second?
Second by city planning.
We have a second by city planning. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? And the motion passes. Now the last item on today's agenda is the adoption of the 2022 Design Advisory Committee meeting schedule. Do we have a motion? We have a motion by HDLC. Do we have a second?
Second.
A second by Parks and Parkways. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? And the motion passes. Okay, thank you, everyone, and we will see you at the next January 19th DAC meeting.
Thank you.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.